us off. So thank you for hitting record, Sarah. Welcome everybody. This is the, what are we in? May meeting of KFNA, the Kingfield Neighborhood Association. Thank you everybody for coming out. I know that it's difficult. I was just outside and it is very nice out. And it is a very nice night to start. I feel like finally getting some plants in the ground and doing some of that work. So I appreciate everyone being here. We are going to, and to the two guests, Josh and Todd, thank you for being here as well. I think you guys understand the routine a little bit. We have collaborative meetings and open meetings, so feel free to chime in and speak and participate in the meeting as much as you would like. That would be, it's more than welcome. And thank you for joining us too. Thank you for throwing the agenda in the chat. Sarah just threw that in there as well. We are going to have, we kind of go through these cycles of meetings where we have some meetings which are more, I don't want to say administrative, but like catching up with all of the business of the year and all the things that we're doing. This meeting is more of that for this year. So you'll see there's a lot of things on the agenda and we're going to be kicking through a lot of topics fairly quickly. So hopefully having a lot of different people kind of talk and work through things. And so excited about that. So I will kick it off right now, 7 o'clock on the agenda. The first item is our community forum. Again, we are all community members, so if anyone would like to share anything, please do. Josh and Todd, this is also a great time for you to share anything that you would like happening in the neighborhood or anything that you would like to share with the board and staff. I will open it up. Seeing no comments, we'll move on in the agenda and officially open the meeting. Since we do have guests here, I would like to do introductions, if that is okay. If everyone would like to, we'll kind of pass it around like we typically do with your name, kind of board member, if you have a specific position on the board, your general kind of location in the neighborhood, and then pronouns, if you would like to share those as well too. So I will start. Chris DeRoche, I'm the board chair. 4400 block of Grand. So very excited to have a, Grand doesn't exist anymore, the asphalt, but we still have kind of an open street. So it was a very nice weekend last weekend. And I use he, him pronouns. I will move it to Lisa to my right.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hudak, and I'm at 4500 Pillsbury. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I don't even know what else I should say. But anyway, I am a member of our board. I have been enjoying Grand as I try and learn how to run again after not having done it for many years, and so taking full advantage of the openness of the street right now and kind of enjoying that. Anyway, I will pass to Alice since she's to my right.
Hi, this is Alice. I also live on Grand, and it's been a mixed blessing. A lot of parts of it are great. The openness is great. The noise hasn't gotten too bad, and it's been fascinating watching the machines, but I think I'm anticipating the chaos that's going to come. So, and I will pass it to BJ.
Hey everyone, I'm BJ Titus. I live at 38th and 1st. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the current secretary of the board. Let's go to L'Oreal.
Hi, I'm L'Oreal. I'm on 40th and Harriet. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a board member. David R., you may go next.
Hi, everybody. I'm David Robbins. I live on 44th and Wentworth. I use he, him pronouns, and I'll pass it to Becky.
Unmute Becky.
There, got it. I was just a little slow today. I'm Becky. I'm on the 4000 block of Garfield. And I can't stop trying to drive down Grand Avenue, and it drives me crazy. It's my cut through for everything all the time, and now I can't use it. And also go to the coffee shop, everyone, because they've had a rough year and a half. You know, Royal Grounds. That's it. I will pass it to Josh.
I'm Josh Martin. I'm a guest. I'm at 44th and Harriet. Yeah, it's been nice with the better weather. I was able to open the windows and so nice out, and my cats are enjoying that. I'll pass it to Sarah T.
Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Cheetah. I'm not feeling well tonight, so I'm just going to stay off video. But I'm on 36th and Pillsbury, she, her, and I'm the current vice president of the board. I will pass to Todd.
Hey everybody, Todd Shipman here, 38th and Lindale, and I'm your association stalker, jumping in. Keep jumping into every meeting, but just interested in what's going on in this neighborhood, and just so grateful that all of you are here to keep this neighborhood association alive and thriving. Thank you very much.
It was David S, right? Yeah.
David S. Hey, I'm David Stroll, he, him pronouns, and I live on 30th and 1st. It's good to see Todd and Josh joining us again. And I'm working on training my cat to go outside so that we can bring her to Grant.
And Sarah LR, could you introduce yourself as well?
Sure. My name is Sarah Linus Robinson. I serve the board as the executive director. I office out of 35th and Nicollet, where I am currently, and I use she, her pronouns.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, and welcome again. I will officially call us to order, I believe, and ask for a motion to approve consent agenda, which includes the agenda for tonight and the April minutes, which are located both in the board packet and the agenda itself. So could I get a motion, please?
I move to approve.
I second.
Any discussion? Sorry for the barking dog. Seeing none, all in favor, thumbs up, yeses in the chats, ayes, opposed, and abstentions. Awesome, thank you, that moves. So great, moving on to the first agenda item, which is me, KFNA board and community meeting planning. This is something that kind of has come a little bit out of our executive committee that we just wanted to get on everybody's radar right away and start talking about as things open up with COVID, as guidelines change, specifically how we as an organization exist. We have been existing online now for over a year, existing in this space. And I think there has been advantages to that and obviously disadvantages to that. So one of the things that we just wanted to start saying is in the executive committee has decided, or not decided, wants to kind of consult with all of you and along with Sarah too, thinking about when our board meetings are going to come back to in person, what they'll look like when they come back to being in person, and if there's any kind of concerns or things that board members would like to bring up now so that we can take that and start incorporating that feedback as we move forward. So the kind of the rough plan that the executive committee discussed was keeping the board meetings kind of through this summer in this virtual format. Maybe doing some board, I don't want to say meet and greets, but board, in-person board gatherings if people feel comfortable, but continuing our board meetings right now through probably September, with maybe that September meeting being the first time that we open up. There's some questions about, where we go. The park may or may not be an option anymore. Sarah's shaking your head no. What that looks like in terms of the space that we have, how big that space is, all of that. So if there are any ideas or inputs that board members have, feel free to share them. We're also talking to about how we as an organization, maybe less as a board, but continue to exist in this space, whether holding virtual or in-person events, and would love board feedback on that. I think, you know, the rough plan is to slowly start rolling out more outdoor of opportunities for people to come together. And so I think maybe Sarah LR, you can talk a little bit more about that and maybe some plans there, but that's the rough idea. The other big thing that I just wanted to kind of quickly address with in-person board meetings is, and I looked at our YouTube channel to see kind of what the engagement has been online. One of the big advantages of doing these meetings virtually is that we're all able to very quickly hop on. Guests are very easily able to join really quickly, and we're able to record these and have people watch them after. We've had board meetings, I believe, with, you know, up to 50 views. We've had redevelopment meetings with over 100, like hundreds of views, which has been really, really great. And so how we continue to be as open and accessible as possible while still going back in person is a question that I think we all should be thinking about. So I guess, Sarah, maybe do you just want to talk a little bit about your thought process around kind of events and outward facing things going forward through the summer, and then we can open it up to see if anyone has any questions about that or how we operate.
So the first public event was held last weekend. It was the garden tool swap. However, that was a city organized event that KFNA hosted at Martin Luther King Park, not an event that we organized. Our first formal event will be Porch Fest. I had it later in the agenda to talk to you guys about scheduling and volunteers for that event. But just to say it here, I'm planning on announcing to artists tomorrow that it will be a June 17th date. We had offered the 17th or the week following, which was the 24th. We thought we could hold the 24th as a rain date. The Derek Chauvin trial has been moved to the 25th, or the sentencing. So we thought the 17th just gave a little bit more breathing room, depending on if there are tensions in the city leading up to that sentencing or celebrations. So that will be the first event. We don't have a lot more planned for that, but the executive committee has begun the conversation about National Night Out. That should be, actually, when I look at our agenda, that's not on our agenda this month. I think we should make sure it's on for July. How KFNA wants to interact with that large community event and what we can and can't do that we've done in the past. I think that's about it, unless you have specific questions, Chris. We're really on a real case by case still. Let me just say that the office is still closed to the public. However, everyone here is double vaccinated at this point, and the ESL teachers are going back to in-person teaching at the Y in June. So that is making us create basically a COVID plan both for the office, for meetings and events here. So we're having a staff meeting about it next week, just to see what people are comfortable with. One of the things that I really would like to plan is an outdoor office opening event that will probably be mostly outdoors at some point this summer. So there's a back patio and a huge back parking lot where we could safely hold a larger outdoor event for the 5 organizations that office from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. I think that's great. Does anyone, I guess I'll open it up to discussion. Anyone have any kind of questions about specifically around COVID in-person events, both public facing and then any input? I would love some specific input on board, the board meetings. Becky, I just saw you raise your hand.
How come we were waiting until September to do an in-person board meeting? Couldn't we do one outside somewhere if and if the weather is crappy, just put it on Zoom?
I think that that's something to discuss. I think that the challenges with like outdoor meetings are, people being able to hear. And I also think, the just general comfort of board members and community members in even outdoor events right now. So I would love to hear board members react to that idea. We talked about it very briefly, but if there was any other kind of like input on an idea like that where we do in-person board meetings, Sarah?
Let me just add that our next meeting is June 9th, so it's the annual meeting. So it wouldn't make sense to move that one outdoors. And then we have a July meeting and we don't have an August meeting. And so one of the questions that the executive committee started to wrestle with is it worth trying to hold an outdoor meeting in July? Can we figure out how to record an in-person meeting? I think September just felt a little safer for a buffer, but there was a desire to look at how could we do a combo in-person board training and online board training so we can at least see each other, possibly for a backyard social for part of that board training where we're not so worried about community members needing access and we don't need to worry about recording.
And Sarah, were you indicating that if we go back in person, it won't be at Martin Luther King Park anymore?
The park is not opening for public at all. And right now they're saying through the year. So we don't have space there. That means then we're dealing with the church. We're dealing with their procedures. We can meet at the office, but this is a pretty tight room for 13 people and guests. So my recommendation is we have a lot of things to figure out before we jump back into in-person. And the other thing, I guess I will say, because some of you are living this, because I'm vaccinated now and my children are all vaccinated, I'm not living in a world where there's young people in my house who can't get vaccinated. I think that parents with younger children are in a completely different situation, and we have some of them on our board.
L'Oreal, I saw your hand was raised.
I was just gonna say I'm ready. Let's do it tomorrow. Let's all get together.
Well, I think it might make sense to do like an anonymous poll too of board members to get the sense of everyone's comfort level. And also, I would think that the ability to broadcast our meetings, I know Chris DeRoche and I met yesterday, and I mentioned that we could do a camcorder with a VHS and people could rent it to, like $5 for the VHS rental. That was a joke, guys. But I would think that we'd be able to figure out how to put the board meetings online somehow too, pretty easily. But I suppose that would depend on like where we actually met in person. But I honestly, I think, to Chris's point, the fact that we had 50 views, I only know that 40 of those were mine. So 10 other views is great. We should definitely make that part of the future. That's awesome. So.
Also, a lot of comedy at the top end of this board meeting, more than we normally have. I like it. I like BJ. I think you had just volunteered to maybe send out a survey. Okay, awesome. I think that's a great idea. I believe we did this at some other point too, specifically talking about board meetings and COVID and that sort of stuff. So I think it's always good just to do a check-in on this. Any other insights people have about specifically board or public-facing meetings/events? Sarah?
I just want to add one thing because it's just occurred to me. July will also be a new board. So it will be a new poll.
Do you want me to wait then?
No, I think it's worth knowing where people are at now.
Okay, sounds good.
Just one question. I'm wondering, BJ, could you potentially add in a question about Just thinking through the logistics of doing in person and whether we might need to find a new space, whether we're going to need to record, just trying to gauge like who is interested in. I'm thinking like if we're going to record in-person meetings, we're going to have somebody who's responsible for setting that up and making sure that it gets processed. It's not as easy to just hit record on our laptops anymore. So I'm wondering, maybe there's people who are, really interested that could help with that. Or I'm just thinking about, being clear about whose role is what with in-person and recording logistics.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Any other questions, comments, insights? Okay, great. Thanks for the discussion. Look for that poll. Please fill it out, and then we can kind of start either continuing on this path or making some different decisions on the direction we go. Next item on the agenda, bylaw changes. I see Sarah LR and the two Davids. I will turn it over to you.
So the reason why I was making jokes is because you guys are gonna all hate me now. First of all, I'm really wondering have people read the new bylaws and have any specific questions? We've got limited time, so to the extent that I could be the most productive by focusing my presentation on the bylaws, it'd be helpful. So anyone have any like specific questions? So my hope would be that everyone's taken the opportunity to read them. These are really, does everyone generally know what bylaws are? I'm trying to look to see. Yeah. So, like I said last month, the reason why we're opting to consider amending the bylaws is the city has updated requirements about what needs to be in bylaws in order to qualify for financing, and B, there were certain things within our bylaws that had kind of over time grown to be inefficient, wonky, what have you. And it made sense, rather than doing like piecemeal changes, to just go ahead and adopt new ones. So there's a lot of stuff in there. Like everything is generally new. These are brand new bylaws. Jess Birkin, the attorney that was designated by the city to draft it, she's a nonprofit expert. She drafted these without reference to our old bylaws. And it's not like someone went into our old bylaws and made changes here and there. These are just brand new. So a lot of it is going to end up being similar to how the organization functions, just because there's not too much difference that you can have from one set of bylaws to another set of bylaws. But let's see if the computer works for me. I'm going to put in the chat again the link to the memo. These are not the exclusive changes that have been made, but these are what I think are the looks like people are coming into the document. So if you go down to the bottom of the first page, the 6 key governance items, I'm just going to go ahead and rehash these again. I think we talked about them last week, but these are the 6 things that, like, practically speaking, you're probably going to notice are the biggest material changes from the old bylaws to the new bylaws. And I'll read through them again. But first, we're going to have a change in the number of directors. This allows our previous bylaws said that we only had 13, or we had to have 13 directors. This change says we must have between 5 and 13 directors. We can still have 13 directors, but this allows us to have the flexibility if we lose a director, like frequently happens, we can stay in compliance with our bylaws, still conduct business, up until the point where, you know, we have 5 directors, we're still in compliance. And then we can go ahead and use the bylaws and the, you know, the procedures set forth in the bylaws to put new directors on the board. Now the 18-year age requirement, that one is, I think we've talked about that, but we had amended it so that we could have directors as young as 16 in order to avoid issues with holding someone legally liable below when they're of minority age. We're moving it back up to 18, but keeping the definition of directors so that, definition of members of the organization such that individuals below 18 but above 16 remain members of the organization. They just cannot serve as directors. And then we've talked about this youth advisory role. To my recollection, that's not actually set forth in the bylaws, but it's something that we can informally have. But Sarah LR, feel free to correct me if I misstated that. If it is actually in the bylaws, I'm forgetting. The third point, this is the one change, or one of the changes that's required by the city. Thank you, Skunk, for highlighting that one. So this one is a slight change to how we had set up the in our original bylaws. I think directors could serve 8 consecutive years. Now they can only serve 6 consecutive years, and then in between that, they must take 2 consecutive years off, which means that, for instance, if I served 6 years, I'd have to automatically leave the board. I was no longer eligible. I could take 2 years off, and then I could come back on for another 6 years. Make sense? Term limits, yeah. Outgoing directors retain their duties until new directors assume office. This is one of those things that was inefficient in our old bylaws, where at the meeting, the annual meeting, directors would no longer, once you got voted out or you weren't running, you lost your title. So this avoids that we have a lame duck. Essentially, we have a lame duck session where for 1 month you retain, or whenever the next meeting is, you retain your title. So if there is business that needs to be conducted, we can go ahead and conduct that business without having new directors. They're like, I don't even understand what I'm doing. Then we're removing this alternates process. I know that that's been used in the past to seat directors. If there's any questions about that one, because I think that we've had some people on the board now that have been alternates. Yeah, Lisa's been an alternate. If there are any questions about that, like I would encourage people to speak up. My dog's got a question about it. But yeah, the alternates, it's not necessarily standard. And I think it dovetails well with the removal of the needing to have 13 directors. So if we can not feel like we have to replace a director once they leave, we have the opportunity to go ahead through the whole recruitment process. And then the removal of the limit on the number of, the removal on the limit on the years in which an officer can serve. I think it was 4 years in the old bylaws. So, you know, Chris, Sarah, BJ, Alice could only serve 4 years as an officer. This changes it. So essentially it's a 6-year limit, right? If I get elected and I immediately become, you know, I'm really ambitious, I immediately become an officer, I can serve for the whole term, 6 years. And effectively that is the limit on how often you can serve as an officer, because you have to be a director to be an officer. There are other changes in the bylaws. It's a dry, boring document, but it is an important document. So I'd encourage everyone to read it. Please do read it. And Sarah, are we voting on it today to propose it to at the annual meeting to the members?
Yes.
Okay. So we can you know, if there are any specific questions that I didn't cover in that summary, let me know now, and we can also have a discussion section. But I will go ahead and, yep, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so my question would be right now with alternates, we seat alternates if somebody resigns, right, in order. And then kind of when we've run out of alternates, the recruitment committee has designed a process for recruiting folks and bringing them on. Do the bylaws do the bylaws allow that process to have like the process that we had, or does it specifically state a process that we would have to go through if we were going to, you know, if someone did resign and we wanted to go out and recruit and bring someone new to the board?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull them up.
It does give the framework of a process.
Yeah.
That, but it gives the power to the directors to seat.
Yeah.
Another board member who fills the rest of the term. So those things are specified. It does not need to go to community vote. So we could run a recruitment process and it could be seated at a board meeting by the directors.
And you know, I'll speak for myself. I don't want to speak for Jerome or Sarah T, but I think one of the things that we all generally agreed on when we were doing the recruitment outside of an annual meeting is it felt, though in compliance with our bylaws, and something that we needed to do, it did feel a little bit strange to be filling seats without community input. So this gives the board discretion by changing the minimum number of directors to 5 and removing the alternate kind of framework. This gives the board discretion to determine whether or not it's prudent to, you know, say three directors leave, we have 13, we go down to 10. It gives the board discretion to determine, is it prudent right now to fill those seats with, you know, recruitment outside of an annual meeting, or do we think that we have the capacity to wait until the annual meeting to fill the seats? And I think that honestly, it would have been nice, I think, to at least have that discussion when we were going through that. I don't know how the result would be, and we obviously added great board members, but I do think that this encourages future boards to wait until that annual meeting process so that board members or board directors can be appointed through the traditional annual meeting process without falling out of compliance with their bylaws. So does that answer the question? Cool. So.
And let me just add that these bylaws give a lot of direction to processes for the organization, including the annual meeting, certain ways that things have to be done. The role of directors in the organization is spelled out in here, or their responsibilities. It would be my desire that the board vote to move these to the community tonight, but these will be revisited throughout the year. Like, these aren't just going to go on a shelf. We're going to talk about these at board training. We're going to make sure that directors understand their responsibility in serving on the board. It's a good set of bylaws. And I will just give a nod to Dave S., who actually was like, oh, I'm glad I read that. You know, it is really how the board works.
Sarah or David, could you explain, I know we explained this at our last meeting, but could you just give a recap on what the process would be, what the board is actually voting on tonight, and then what the community would be voting on, kind of that process?
So the board would vote tonight to move this, the clean copy of the bylaws to the community for a vote as a whole. And so in the June 9th annual meeting, when the poll, it's not a poll, what's it called, BJ? When the website's
Ballot?
open where people can go elect people.
The ballot.
When the ballot's open, there will also be an opportunity to vote to approve the bylaws. And then based upon that, those bylaws become effective immediately. So the motion coming from the board would be to send these to the community, and upon approval, when voting closes after the annual meeting, if approved, they become effective immediately.
Mhm. And if the community does not vote in favor of them, then we would just default back to the old bylaws.
Mhm.
So
Todd Shipman here. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Can somebody just explain to me what the makeup of the board is and how many seats are open on an annual basis?
So the board is arranged for staggered 2-year terms. So with a 13-member board, there are 6 elections 1 year and 7 the next year.
Okay.
I believe with Chris Hong's resignation, there are 7 seats open in the coming year. Some board members have indicated a desire to run again. That is no guarantee that they will be elected again. So they're completely wide open 7 seats. Let me also add that directors are only elected for 1 year. So that in the first meeting of the new board of directors, officers, excuse me, did I misspeak? Officers will be elected.
yeah, so directors are elected for 2 years, and then officers are elected for 1 year, and then they're recertified every year by the board.
Thank you.
And I think that's just a good point to reiterate too, for folks who are new on the board. At our first meeting after the annual meeting, we vote on the officers. So that is the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. So this changes the term limits of those folks, but it does not change the fact that all of those positions are voted on every single year specifically by the board directors.
Yep. From the directors too. Yeah. So that's, so the only people eligible to serve as officers are directors. Yeah. All right.
Any other questions or comments specifically on the bylaw changes?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to, I move to present the bylaws, the amended and restated bylaws to the community at the annual meeting for approval and adoption.
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that right now? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye, thumbs up, or yes in the chat. PJ, get it. Opposed, thumbs down, and any abstentions? Okay, great, thank you. That passes. So thank you again, David, Sarah, for this. This is the bylaws have always been something that I've been always a little frustrated by. And so it's nice to have a clean set, and it's nice to have a lot of the stuff that's been frustrating in them changed and updated in a sweeping manner. And just to throw it out there, just that kudos to Sarah LR for proposing and pushing, I would say, the executive committee to do this. This was a long discussion that we had too, because it's a big move. And so I appreciate that leadership and pushing us forward to get this done. So exciting. And there'll definitely be some engagement that will want to be had. And I think we'll all ask for board members to do in getting community members to understand and vote on the changed bylaws. So thank you. Next item on the agenda, talking about Operation Safetynet. I have Becky, L'Oreal, and Sarah T on here right now. I will kick it over to whoever is going to take the lead on that discussion.
I can do that. I'm like super organized and have notes, so I'm going to read them from my notes. I apologize if I don't blink. I'm okay. I'm just reading notes. So first, I'll explain what Operation Safetynet is. Operation Safetynet is a program established by Minnesota law enforcement after the murder of George Floyd, which continued up until the aftermath of Daunte Wright. It was recently put into place as a public safety effort during the trial of Derek Chauvin and protests after the death of Daunte. This statement and letter is a letter signed by about 87 and counting organizations to call on Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, Mayor Carter, and Sheriff Hutchinson to cease this program. Using military force can perpetuate anger and fear and make our communities of color feel uncomfortable and unsafe. Seeing military personnel with automatic rifles and tanks on our street corners can bring up trauma and can actually do more harm than good. More than 100 people were seriously injured by police officers during protests in Minneapolis last summer, and not one officer was disciplined for misconduct for those injuries. About, like I said earlier, 87 state and local organizations have signed this letter. I can read off a few as an example. The American Civil Liberties Union of Minnesota, Black Lives Matter St. Paul, the Coalition of Asian American Leaders, Gender Justice, Honor the Earth, Minnesota Workers United, Minnesota Nurses Association, Reclaim the Block, Sierra Club North Star Chapter, St. Paul Federation of Educators, Take Action Minnesota, and Voices for Racial Justice. So as you can see, there are many diverse community organizations in support of this. So we have like racial groups, gender groups, occupational groups, environmental and community associations as well. So why should KFNA support this? KFNA should support Stop Operation Safetynet because it is in line with the association's values, mission, and neighborhood work to support safety beyond policing. From what I can assume, many community members in Kingfield believe that the social justice movement is important and they want to see progressive change. Over the past year, neighbors have demonstrated that they want to make Black, Indigenous, immigrant, and other people of color comfortable and safe. I'm not assuming that the Hispanic community here are undocumented, but from my own experience with my friends, in my small town and my friends from Mexico, even if they're legal, they still feel very uncomfortable if there's a large police presence, especially if they have military guns. So the role of the board with this statement and letter is to publicly say that we as a community value our residents and want to show our support in the efforts to eliminate military presence in our neighborhood and beyond to our city. We hope to take a vote on whether to join the other 87 and counting organizations in signing the Stop Operation Safetynet letter. The end. I think I blinked. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing all of that information.
Just to quickly interject so if you're
Sarah
looking at the letter and the other things, they are in the chat right now. Becky, I saw you were off of mute. Was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, in talking about this, I think that it's important, especially now with upcoming sentencing, trials in August. Things just continue to happen. And in other states where they're passing anti-protest laws, it's pretty scary to me. So I think now more than ever, we need to tell our leaders in Minneapolis and in the state in general that we're not okay with that. Thanks, L'Oreal, for doing all that work.
So just a quick bit of information. Starting in March, the city was holding weekly Wednesday meetings that I attended. They were called safety meetings. At the last one before the trial was closed, when the National Guard was there, we were told that there is no planned end for Operation Safetynet.
Good information. Thank you, Sarah.
I think I read online that they were deployed, or not, what's the opposite of deployed? Hold on, let me find it.
You're winding down.
Yeah,
but
I lost
no
it.
end date, and I was just looking for it. So
I guess what I'll do is maybe open it up for discussion or questions or comments on this to the board. if you do click on that link, I just want to specifically state that there is proposed voting language in this right now on a resolution that the board would, I think the ask tonight is that the board vote on this. I will say that one of the things that I did specifically personally and feel strongly about was went out with a 3-year-old and stood on the corner. One of the reasons why I support this and support signing on to this letter is the work that we've done as an organization over the last year. I would even say year plus. Talking about safety happening in community, talking about safety happening through community, and talking about safety happening with the lens of racial justice as its key item, as what we're here for. A lot that happens, the majority of what happens through Operation Safetynet is in opposition of that, is in tanks and military presence on our corners is not what we've been working for. That's a really easy ask. We could have asked that as a neighborhood association, and that's not what we did. What we've done is try to connect neighbors. What we've done is try to bring people together to make people safer through community. And I want to continue to do that work. And what we saw before what we saw a month or so ago wasn't that. And I want to be able to ensure that we're able to continue to do that work, that we don't have the curfews, that we're able to continue to connect with our neighbors and feel safe outside. And so I appreciate all the things that L'Oreal said and also Becky said in that I am and do support this. Any other insights from anyone else? David.
So Operation Safetynet, is that like an executive order by Walls? Or is that, I mean, is it a creature of the governor's authority? Is the executive? It's not passed by the legislator, I'm assuming, or just the cities or counties?
Minnesota law enforcement officials established Operation Safetynet to ensure everyone can safely have their voices heard and that people and property are protected. That's what their Facebook says.
Okay, so it's law enforcement agencies who have created, and they're acting at their own direction, or they're acting at the direction of the cities, counties, and state.
I think it's through the Minnesota National Guard, if I remember correctly reading it. I'm trying to look back, and then like
The governor has control over the National Guard.
I believe so.
It's the governor.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, I have all the agencies if you want to know all the agencies. But go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, David, the question that you bring up, I think is one of the issues about Operation Safetynet is just the lack of transparency of who is this exactly making decisions, and who's reporting to who's accountable to who. I mean, I'm just thinking back to protests that were in Brooklyn Center, and kind of the county saying, oh, we're here now, and the mayor of Brooklyn Center has asked us to be here, but then there just being a lot of confusion about who's in charge. And I don't know why that is the case, if that's deliberate or not, but I think that what concerns me about it is just the lack of transparency, the lack of accountability when things do go wrong, who is answering to who. And so I support us signing on to this letter. And I think one of it is just the lack of transparency that this group of officials has to begin with is problematic to me. I'm wondering also, just as a suggestion, and because of time, if we might do gradients of agreement like we've done in the past, where people can just put into the chat on a scale of 1 to 5 where you're at in your support of this, 1 being do not support, excuse me, and 5 being I support wholeheartedly, I guess. So 1 being do not support, 5 being support. Thank you.
You, Sarah. I also just want to say that, you know, these are big topics. We all come from different perspectives and we all don't have to agree. The reason why we are here as a board is to have these conversations, and then to, in my opinion, to represent the community. So again, I'll say, you know, we've taken, you know, if this is how you're feeling and you want to sign on to this, great. If you don't feel like voting this way, that's great too. I think oftentimes we felt like we have to have like complete like agreement 100 ways. So I appreciate you kind of talking about the gradients of agreement, Sarah, because like I said, we all come at things from different perspectives. So any other discussion on this, or any other items in the gradients of agreement, or any other people want to throw that in the chat right now? It's seeming like I'm generally seeing 5s. Okay. Could I maybe, with no discussion, could I ask for a motion, and maybe could I ask for a motion from L'Oreal, Sarah, or Becky, specifically with that proposed voting language, if that's what you would like to move forward?
I'll make a movement to do that. Did you want me to read that for the record?
Could you, Sarah?
Yep. So the proposed voting language from the handout here, in line with our values and mission, Kingfield Neighborhood Association joins the 75+ community organizations in Minnesota, calling to stop Operation Safetynet immediately. Operation Safetynet and its preemptive use of force and militarized presence is at odds with KFNA's work to build safety beyond policing and to affirm that Black Lives Matter. Occupying our neighborhoods with militarized force cannot become our new norm in Minneapolis.
So that is a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion?
Yeah, I'll just say I plan to abstain from the vote, just because I don't vote on things that I don't understand. But I do want to make clear on the record that I totally do not condone police using chemical agents on protesters that they won't disclose and they're having long-term health impacts. I do not condone having military presence on corners in my neighborhood. It scares the hell out of me. But I just, again, I don't know if that's because of Operation Safetynet or if it's because cops are just like, going at the direction of whoever, the governor authorizing the National Guard. And I don't know if that's part of Operation Safetynet or not. So that's the reason why I plan on abstaining. But anyways.
Thank you, David. Any other additional discussion?
I am a 4 on this. Looking at the mission itself of KFNA, now I lost, of course, what was listed. There we go. It says in value with in our values and mission. And I don't know that it states in our mission objectively that what we stand for as a neighborhood association would be in opposition for this. The only thing in the mission that states that is neighborhood leadership, which kind of is correlated. Like David, I agree with this. I agree with the statement, but my issue is with the wording of the proposed language. It doesn't really line up with our mission.
BJ, do you feel it aligns with the values?
I think it does align with the values, but the mission itself, I think it's misstated in the proposed language.
Could that be a friendly amendment, since Sarah T, you moved this? How do people feel about removing that language to say in line with our values, and removing and mission? it would have to be your decision, Sarah T, on whether that's a friendly amendment or not.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I would say just yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. I think that in the mission statement, we do talk about community participation. One of the tactics of Operation Safetynet has been to preemptively put our city under curfew, which thereby limits participation to a certain extent. But yeah, I definitely hear you and think that we could talk about values instead.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure the process of adopting that as a friendly amendment.
Should we just make a new movement? Or no, we can't do that.
It would be a motion within a motion. So
Yep. So BJ, do you make that motion within a motion? Did we lose L'Oreal?
L'Oreal had to drop off for her meeting, but she
Oh.
did say in the
Okay.
chat that she is voting yes to move through this. Yeah, it is me that needs to vote to amend your proposed language. So I move to amend the proposed language moved by Sarah Cheetah to remove mission from that language.
I second.
Okay, any other further discussion on now our amended motion? Okay, seeing no additional discussion, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the amended language that's been stated, with the exception, it'll read in line with our values and remove mission at the front of it. Please, yes, say aye, thumbs up, yes in the chat. No. And abstentions. 2 abstentions. Did you get that, BJ? Awesome, thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. And I apologize for L'Oreal that we had to run a little over and she had to run off, but I appreciate the work that L'Oreal, Becky, and Sarah did in presenting this. Moving on to the next agenda item, Sarah LR, this is you. I will kick it over
Can
to you.
I ask a technicality?
Yes.
David R, can we count L'Oreal's vote?
Yeah. We can, I mean, she was present for, I don't see when she dropped off, but she was present for the discussion on the amended thing and she said yes. Let's see, and there was
so then I believe it.
It hadn't been called for a vote, but we can have her, I mean, to the extent that we need to have her confirm in writing, we can have her confirm in writing, but yeah.
It's just a couple of weird fuzzy things. So a board member is not present unless they're present for an hour of the meeting, which it is now.
Yeah.
We still have quorum, don't we?
Yep, we don't lose quorum when someone leaves.
Really?
That's my understanding, right? We don't lose quorum when
that's my understanding as well, because they were here for the quorum. So if someone showed up and then departed immediately, we would still technically have quorum.
Yep.
Okay, so votes just need to exceed the number of nay votes. They don't deal with quorum at all. Okay, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Sarah, it is on to you for new city funding requirements and funding available.
Oh, cool. So I'm just gonna take, how much time do we have? 4 minutes to talk really quickly about the new funding. And I wanna put this in the chat. So this is a document. This actually links, it's not the one I wanted to copy, sorry. Don't go there. There are 2 new pots of funds. And there is a new requirement by the city that this is the link I'm putting in here. And we'll talk about this more in the future. KFNA will need to have a draft of an equitable engagement plan by September. So that is a new requirement for funding. And then the other two links that are in the board packet are to 2 additional pots of funding over the base funding that the neighborhood association receives. So as you know, I've talked about this a lot this year, our former program, community participation program, is going away. We are now just signed our contract for the first 6 months of the equitable engagement program with the city. The equitable engagement program provides much less funding. I'm sorry, I was tangled up in my English. Many fewer dollars, much less funding to KFNA than the prior program did. Roughly $34,000 as opposed to $54,000. So over 3 years, there'll be essentially a 60% cut in funding for the neighborhood association. So there are now 2 new pots of money that came out of the dollars allocated to neighborhood that were taken off the top. So there's a $4 million commitment to community engagement, essentially, but only 3 million of that goes to neighborhoods, which is why we see a reduction. So the 2 pots of fundings, and I mix up their names all the time, so I hopefully won't do that this time, is there's a collaboration and shared resource fund. That year, that pot of money has $31,000 in it, a whopping $31,000. And that's the pot of money that neighborhoods apply to be more efficient in the work they do with another neighborhood association. So either this year or next year, this is a pot of funds that KFNA will look at applying for, possibly with Lindale Neighborhood Association, to streamline services that are provided to both neighborhoods. Sadly, because my contract started with Lindale before this pot of funding was approved, we can't simply apply for it now. However, it is a cap for 2 neighborhoods of $15,000 over the lifetime, 3-year lifetime of this program. So it doesn't really matter if it's this year or next year, it's just going to be $15,000. The second pot of funds is called the Partnership Engagement Funds for 2021 from July through December. That's $245,000 approximately. This pot of money will actually grow each year. And it's really for community benefit organizations. Non-neighborhood groups apply for that directly, and they cite a neighborhood association partner. So the way this will work is, one way this could work is a group that we know nothing about could apply for this funding to do a project in the neighborhood, and the city would work to connect them to us, and we could choose to work with them or not, but they could do their thing in the neighborhood, or in a group of neighborhoods, whatever that work is, that is beneficial to their community, which doesn't follow neighborhood lines. The other way this could work, which is an angle that we're taking right now, is organizations that we know that are doing good work with underserved communities in our neighborhood. We are reaching out to, and I'm holding one-on-ones with their leadership to talk about projects that their populations might be interested in doing, and how we could partner on that work. So a stronger partnership from the beginning. So for example, I have a meeting with the Aliveness Project tomorrow. The Aliveness Project serves 25% of the people in Minnesota with HIV/AIDS and their families, to talk about what projects they're thinking of doing, how they want to be involved in the community. Is there something that they want to apply for currently as a community project, and possibly how we can partner with them and actually be included in the budget to be involved in that project. Otherwise, it's very possible that this funding will never hit neighborhood associations. So right now we've reached out to Sagrado de Corazon, which is both the church at 38th and Pillsbury, but also affiliated with the school, 38th and Pleasant, also affiliated with the school there, also runs a food shelf, also has like a nonprofit arm. We've reached out to the Aliveness Project, and we've reached out to Nicollet Square, and we've reached out separately to Beacon Interfaith Housing, which is like the parent founding company of Nicollet Square separately. As a side note, I'm over time. As a side note, I think I'll just bring it up here because it makes more sense here. One of the projects that I spoke with Beacon about is working with them to actually have them lead an affordable housing advocacy team, that instead of just working from congregations, they'd start like through a neighborhood, so that we would have a group of people who are really interested in opportunities to be advocates throughout the city, throughout the state for affordable housing and opportunities to demonstrate that work. And this conversation came up because they asked KFNA specifically to speak to this point at a city council meeting, at a city committee meeting, of which committee, the biz committee, next week. They found that there's an issue with how the affordable housing funds are being allocated, that they're not being allocated to really low income housing. They're being allocated actually to a lot of housing that's more at like 60% AMI. And so they would like a neighborhood association to come forward and say, we believe in affordable housing. We really think that the city needs a stronger process, or needs a system change in allocating this funding. So this will be something that I'll be working with both our MLK outreach team with the homeless population last year, and our housing committee, to see if we can identify a couple of people to go speak to the city next week. And then it grew into this broader idea of like, could Beacon like apply for funds and jumpstart this team? And could we get some people really active on this issue on an ongoing basis? And can KFNA be part of that partnership grant, so we actually are realizing some money into from that work? Because funding into the organization, as we know, is going to be an issue in the coming years.
Awesome.
So that's it. That's our new funding streams and one of the new requirements.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. And I'll just say quickly that I really appreciate the outreach to especially the neighborhood association or neighborhood groups here in the neighborhood. I'm really excited about that. I think, you know, some of the brainstorming that we did around strategic planning and like thinking about the different groups that we can outreach to, I think this all kind of ties together really, really well. So I'm specifically really excited about that work and appreciate, you know, you taking the initiative to reach out to folks. And I think I'm hoping that a lot comes out of that. Any other comments or questions for Sarah in regards to everything she just talked about? Okay. Seeing none, moving on to the next item, recruitment and annual meeting updates. I'll ask, I think, Sarah T, maybe to kick this off with contributions from some of the other recruitment committee members, recruitment and annual meeting committee members.
Yeah, David R, feel free to jump in here too with anything. I just put in the chat here a link to the handout. Some reminders, some new information. This is our last board meeting before our annual meeting on June 9th. And our last board meeting before board applications are due on June 2nd. So just wanted to make sure that we spend some time at this evening talking about that, so that's fresh in people's minds in terms of board recruitment, recruiting neighbors to apply, as well as recruiting neighbors to attend the annual meeting, getting people interested in attending the annual meeting. So just a couple refreshers here. As I said, board applications are due on June 2nd. We've received 2 applications so far. All of the board roles and responsibilities are on the website, as well as a link to the Google form that we are asking people to fill out. Once board applications close on June 2nd, they'll be published on the website, social media, in e-news. BJ is designing a voting process. And BJ, if you want to share anything about that, you can jump in or not here once I go through this. But basically voting is going to open at the annual meeting on June 9th. And it'll be an online voting process like we offered last year, and will continue. I think we had decided about a week past the annual meeting. And then board will be announced later on in June. And then new board members would have July as their first meeting of their new term. In terms of the annual meeting format, it's going to be virtual, again, during our regular board meeting time here. You can see the tentative agenda laid out here. I think this will be, if anybody has any quick feedback that they want to provide about this tonight, great. Otherwise, will be refined more in the recruitment work group as well as the executive committee meeting, just as we determine what else we might need to include on the June board meeting that is kind of above and beyond our typical annual meeting items here. But just quick overview, we'll do the welcome, we'll talk about the KFNA business like the bylaws, and the funding proposals. We're planning to have each of the candidates speak. How long and exactly what this looks like will be determined once we know how many total candidates we have. But it's not going to be anything extensive. Basically an opportunity for people who are running for the board to introduce themselves and speak briefly about something in the neighborhood that they care about. BJ will talk about what the voting process is going to look like, kind of walk people through that. We also wanted to make sure that we are celebrating some accomplishments over the last year. And so, Becky, would you be willing to talk about the Bridgel? Not to put you on the spot, but these are some different items that we had talked about as a group and brainstormed as things that could be something like a 2-minute celebration of these various accomplishments. So the Bridgel, 100 Days of Community, something from the redevelopment committee, whether that's equitable development scorecard or this coalition or group that, I don't know if it's too new to talk about this potential group, Sarah, that you were just mentioning. That sounds really cool. Talking about affordable housing and getting more organizations on board with that. And then we want to celebrate successes in census work over this past year too. That was super important. And we saw what happened with our congressional seat here. And then also strategic planning. We figured that this could be a good opportunity with a broader neighborhood audience to talk about that, and also to potentially kick off some of the feedback opportunities that we're going to be looking for neighbors to engage in. So that's a quick nutshell of the format. But what I'm hoping we can spend a little bit of time here tonight is just thinking about board recruitment. And we've done quite a bit already. We have put up, the recruitment work group has put up flyers at every multifamily home in the neighborhood, because we know that we really need to build up our board with more people who rent. And so we made a specific effort to get out there with some flyers and flyer apartments and multifamily homes. We've had announcements in the e-news, some social media. We're hosting a board virtual info session a week from tonight at 7 o'clock. But we know that, really there's a lot of power in making direct asks and in thinking about, who in our neighborhood we think would be a good fit, and particularly thinking about that in relation to, areas that we can diversify our board. So people who rent, youth, seniors, Black, Indigenous people of color, LGBTQ+. So I guess I'm curious if anybody wants to share if they have reached out, if they know of anybody in the neighborhood, if who they're thinking that would be a good fit to apply. Is there anyone that we should be reaching out to? We're just curious if people have been having conversations, if people have any leads. It would be great to know about. I'll just share that I was talking with Dan at Butter earlier this week and asked him, because of his partnership with Nicollet Square, if he had anybody in mind that lives at Nicollet Square, or anybody over there that we could send this information to, if any of his employees or residents there might be interested in coming to the info session and learning more and applying. So I'll end there and just see, I'm seeing there's some chat if anybody other has any comments too.
I will add, that was going to be one of my talking points to Sarah, like with Nicollet Square and Aliveness Project. So if you read the bylaws, you'll know that not everyone who serves as a director has to live or own property in the neighborhood. They can also be a stakeholder or representative of a business or organization. So I thought I would go from the leadership level down, asking them the same question. I think the idea of like going from the working level or bottom up is also a great idea in those organizations. If you know members of the Aliveness Project who might be interested, but I'll speak also with their executive director tomorrow and with Nicollet Squares.
That's great. Thank you so much for doing that.
I also want to add, we had a late added report from L'Oreal. She had sent me notes from the garden swap, and then I threw it into the report form. So that's in the packet if people want to read it. We did get a Spanish translation of the recruitment flyer. And so she brought both the English and the Spanish to the event last week. And a pastor from a church in Powderhorn came and said that he knows people in the neighborhood who identify as Latinx. And so he would talk to them. And I think L'Oreal has a meeting set up with their youth engagement person. So, I mean, I just think like being in the community and talking to people about the opportunities is also important wherever we have that opportunity in the next few weeks.
That's awesome. The one thing that I would add for recruitment, we've typically, well, it's been in my time on the board. Well, it's actually been a few different folks, but you know, most recently Dan from Butter, representing kind of businesses in the community. From what I know of everybody, I don't think we have any business owners on the board right now, or people who kind of publicly operate businesses in the neighborhood. I think that would be really good to have, and I think that's kind of an underrepresented group. So if you know folks running, you know, coffee shop, restaurant, local store that you want to let know about this, please share that, because I think it'd be really great to have that conduit on the board as well to local businesses. Any other comments or questions, or I guess insights on folks for recruitment?
I've been lazy and not asking two business owners that I know. One's not in the neighborhood, but he lives in the neighborhood. And then the other one lives and owns a business in the neighborhood. So I am going to vow to the board, I will ask both of them.
The English version of the flyer is in the board packet. If you want to print that out and take that with you or send that to people, I will send out the Spanish version later tonight as well.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, I think just one last push to please invite people to the virtual info session on May 19th. Board applications due June 2nd, and please invite your neighbors, whether they're interested in running for the board or not. You know, the annual meeting is meant to be a gathering for everyone in the neighborhood. So please do encourage them to attend that. And I was going to say one more thing and now I forgot. So I guess I'll have to put it in the chat, but thanks everyone. Oh, I know. I was going to say, speaking of in-person opportunities to talk to people, I think we'll get to this a little bit later, but with the farmers market starting back up, that will be a great opportunity. We've got I think at least a couple weeks here where we could be talking to people at the farmers market about the annual meeting and board recruitment. Thank you.
Awesome. And I think Sarah LR, you mentioned that the flyer is in the board packet. So if you see folks talking about this online and you want to send things to them, please do that. I think there's a lot of conversations that happen in the Facebook group or, you know, on Nextdoor, different things that are very applicable to the work that we do. And so I think it would be really great to say, hey, that's really cool that you care about that. That's something that KFNA works on, or that KFNA could work on, and encouraging people to kind of turn some of that discussion into possible action on the board here. So that would be the only thing that I would add. So any other final insights on recruitment or the annual meeting? Awesome. Strategic planning. I guess I can give this update really quickly. As I think hopefully most board members have gotten outreach. We're doing interviews with folks that have gone really well. The interviews that I've done so far to kind of talk with board members about their current experience and where they see the direction of the organization going has been super valuable for me. And we're going to be coming together. My guess is I think probably in I think next week or sometime to kind of pull all that information together. So we appreciate everyone's time in working through those interviews and giving us your insights. I hope they're valuable to you. I know they've been valuable. Those conversations have been valuable to me so far. BJ?
Yeah, and next steps is the interviews were the first process. Next is a neighborhood survey that next strategic planning meeting, we'll be talking through the survey, getting that ready for our goal was end of May, beginning of June launch. So I think we'll meet that. And then the third step that we laid out in the board meeting last month was to be looking at stakeholders in the neighborhood and doing outreach to stakeholders as well, which will be happening. And kind of that was our plan through July. So one of the ways to do the outreach to have this survey go out is at the Kingfield Farmers Market. If you remember from the meeting last month, KFNA has a designated spot at the Kingfield Farmers Market, as we were one of the originators of the farmers market. For those of you who don't know or didn't know, the farmers market is moving to MLK parking lot, both the tennis center and the building parking lot. And the way that not kiosks, what's the word, vendors need to be spaced out, KFNA actually doesn't have a place in the parking lot because they had to limit their vendors, but we are welcome to be up in the orchard. So this could be an opportunity to be meeting neighbors, greeting neighbors, talking about the great work that KFNA is doing, and then potentially doing board recruitment as well as sending out this survey or having them fill out the survey right there. So that was kind of our next layout of plan.
Awesome. Thank you, BJ. I know Katie, who wasn't here tonight, has done a ton of work on the survey and has taken a lot of the input from the last board meeting and also from Sarah and our committee too. So that's, I think, getting ready to go. And I think a final meeting sounds like maybe even tomorrow, Sarah, with Katie to kind of finalize some of that. And then we'll have that survey out to the community. So that's the quick strategic planning update. Any questions or comments on that? Otherwise, I think we're getting to some of the last agenda items. Sarah, I'm going to kick it over to you for kind of an all-encompassing staff update. And it looks like you're going to have, about 20 minutes if you need it.
I don't think I'll need that long because I covered some of this earlier, but there's been a lot of movement on some items. I did a couple weeks of call outs to form an election education team in the neighborhood. 5 neighbors so far have responded, one of whom is Josh. Thank you, Josh. Basically at this point, I put out a couple of ideas and asked people to let me know which items that they are interested in. And then we'll sort of cobble together even smaller teams. And so the things that I've heard so far are people are interested in educating people about the charter amendments. People are interested in doing a park board forum or debate of some sort, probably with other District 6 neighborhood associations. I've also heard from those neighborhood associations that many of them are also interested in doing that work. And then a couple people are doing voter registration training with the League of Women Voters in the coming week. Josh, I think you signed up for that, and another neighbor did as well. I think those are the key interests at this point. Obviously, as we get closer to the election, we will look towards this team to sort of launch the voting signs, the sign campaign, and be getting information out to people about where they vote. Just as an update, because I'm super excited, someone reached out to me earlier this afternoon, and they've actually put together a 30-minute presentation on not all the charter amendments, but the sort of policing charter amendments. And it is not take a position, it's completely educational. It's a woman who runs the TV for the League of Women Voters, but this is not sponsored by the League of Women Voters. So it might be a quick, easy way to start getting that information out starting in June. So they approached me asking if that could be arranged with the neighborhood association. So I will be passing that on to the team tomorrow. There's a lot of work to do. It seems for every election. So if you know other people that might be interested in this work, please let me know. We also don't have a board member involved in the work of the election team. So if this is of particular interest to someone, it would be good just to have a board member that's really keyed into all the different things that this group will be working on. Right now, I really see my role as not being present at all of these things or running these things, but really just sort of collecting people together and helping coordinate the larger pieces like the forums and putting teams together to do that work and making sure that they have the money they need to do that and the video access or the spaces if they're going to be in public and the connections in other neighborhoods and stuff like that. Questions on that?
Yeah, is there anything that like folks like would want to see as part of, especially around like election education, like or like election engagement? Like what would you like to see done? And maybe it's just even reiterating some of the stuff that Sarah already talked about, but I think that would be a good question for board members.
I think that there is, I will just say, a broader education that probably should happen on every charter amendment that will be happening. I don't know what all those are yet, and possibly even of like, what the heck is a charter? I always love the education pieces, and this year will be a big year. Like, what's at the bottom of the ballot? Like, who are all these people that we don't know that we're voting for, and what do they do? That stuff is always really interesting just to try and raise that awareness. And then I will say that one of the coolest election outreach things I did last year that we can work on this too was in voter registration that I did up at Carmel Mall. So outside of our neighborhood, but really looking towards where do people, where are we missing voters? And so those are opportunities that we can look for both within our neighborhood, you know, if open streets is happening or events are happening within the neighborhood, but also looking at opportunities outside of our neighborhood with partners.
Yeah, I think to Sarah's point, I was going to say like a Minneapolis civics lesson would be helpful, I think, because we have an incredibly, regardless of what you think about any policies, our city is run. I think that I've heard there's one other city in the United States of America that is adopted or has the same type of government that the city of Minneapolis has. And I don't know what that city is. I've just heard it referenced that there's only 2 cities in America that have opted to run themselves like Minneapolis. And yeah, it's complicated. And I think it would be helpful to educate people on exactly what our system is.
The only thing I would add just is from looking at YouTube views, when we did the quick forum at the last election around school board candidates, those are some of the most viewed videos we have. I think 80 or 90 views on each of them. So, you know, almost 200, total engagements with that. So I think continuing to give people access to and information on candidates as well as I think is really valuable. So. And there's some good examples of some good forums that have happened, some so far, and some ones that, we can see how we could do things a little bit differently. So
the other piece that I want to add is I feel like we will be putting out a fall print publication that should include, in the past, it's included bios of candidates for certain races, information on where to vote and how to vote. And so that would be like a print publication that we will want to do this year. The League of Women Voters is also putting out some really interesting basic monthly educational pieces that I'll be sharing on the through Kingfield channels as well. So okay, if there's nothing else on voting, I wanted to talk quickly about, let's take the easy one, Porch Fest. So I mentioned to you, I think we have a date. I reached out to our list of 100 musicians and hosts and put forward 2 dates to them. Got back pretty split returns of what people preferred. This event has traditionally been held near solstice, sort of as a solstice celebrating event. So that meant it was June 17th or the 24th. And then looking at the Chauvin sentencing date, at this point, I would like the board, I'd like to know who's available on the board to be present for the event on the 17th. And there are a variety of tasks that have to happen in the week leading to it, on the night of, and in the week following. I think what we're going to try to do this year is try to continue something that happened last year, which was on Thursdays we sing. And so we'll have one big blowout event on the 17th with a rain date, because one year we got really rained out for the 24th. But then we'll just continue with a more casual, anyone can play, put out a sign on any Thursday. This year with COVID, hopefully relaxing, we can do more promotion of where that music is happening. Last year, we were just super obtuse about it. We're like, 3 bands are playing, walk around the neighborhood and find them. I think we can be a little bit more obvious about who might be playing and give them some promotion. But basically, we'll have ongoing music throughout the summer. So is anyone interested in sort of doing some running around the neighborhood those couple of weeks in June, meeting musicians, putting out signs in people's yards, that type of work? Chris and Becky, I see 2 hands.
Yeah, I can help too. Are we
Awesome.
doing can coolies?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Do we have
That was
them?
my question.
We still have some.
Yeah, we should. How many do we have?
I don't know. They're in a box down the basement.
Yeah, let's
We have a lot. We
let's
have
get
enough to
that
sell.
boy out. I still love my can coolie.
All right. All right. David S., thank you. You're gonna miss it. No one planned vacation for the 17th. Excellent. So I just during this meeting, I've had 2 emails of like, when's the date? So I keep emailing people back like, we'll talk about it. So it will be the 17th. Super exciting. Musicians will be really psyched. So if you have a big porch on your house and want to host, we always look for hosts who are willing to take a band. It'll be interesting this year with COVID. I think we're going to have to figure out exactly like our COVID language for how hosts and bands sort of deal with that situation. We might be slightly smaller because of that, because people won't be comfortable with that, but we'll figure it out. I talked about the affordable housing advocacy request from Beacon to speak at the BIZ meeting on Tuesday. As I said, I'm reaching out to other groups unless anyone here has like got a burning desire to learn about the Affordable Housing Fund and wants to go speak to the city about it.
Sarah, how should we phrase it? And if we have folks who we think we would like to send that information to, how should we be phrasing that? Both in terms of like the short term, like going to the city,
Yep.
and then also just this longer term group. Like if I'm like,
So-
hey, I think you would be good for this, right? Like how in sending them to you, is that the correct?
Yeah,
David?
so Emily sent me a description of what they want for next Tuesday. So that I will look at and send to select people and the redevelopment committee tomorrow to see if people actually want to speak. No one I don't think would need to let me know. They'd probably let Emily know, or they'd have to sign up. I don't know. I haven't read it that carefully yet. It's not, I don't know if you have to sign up like you have to for a planning commission meeting. But then I'll put together a description, and I actually called some people this evening on my way into work just to bounce this idea off of them. So I think based upon what I hear from them, we'll have a short pitch paragraph. Emily, who's one of our contacts at Beacon, is talking to her staff about what is their capacity, because this also started with a funding conversation about that new pot of money through the partnership dollars. They might not be ready for that, but I don't want this to sit for 6 months until those funds for next year are available. I want to start working on it now. So working with them to sort of see what guidance Beacon staff can start giving those people and sort of tasks. This is really like the season, I believe. This is what I keep hearing from affordable housing people. This is the season when advocacy is needed, because this is a time when like the budgets are being set for all those funds of money. So it is cyclical also work. So I'll be working on a write-up.
That sounds great. It's one of the things that I've just like, I felt like we've always been lacking, and is a way to kind of direct and give people resources who really deeply care about affordable housing, but maybe haven't like known exactly where to plug in. And so I think giving them a resource, a location, and especially an expert like Beacon to be able to connect to would be huge. So I'm super excited about that.
Right. And so then the last item that I wanted to do an update on is Wells Fargo. So Kingfield Neighborhood Association was invited to be involved in the planning for the community engagement sessions for the redevelopment of the Wells Fargo site that has now been smashed to the ground. If any of you have been up this way in the last month. So in case people aren't familiar, the site of where Wells Fargo sat was sold by Wells Fargo to PPL, Project for Pride in Living. Their plan is to do a phased development. The first phase of development will include 200 units of affordable housing facing Nicollet Avenue and ground floor commercial, most likely in a 5-story building, even though that area is zoned. I don't know what the term is, designed or allowed through the 2040 plan for a much higher building than 5 stories. 5 stories is the one that is sort of like a break-even point, I guess, on construction methods. So that's what we're going to see a lot of being built around the Twin Cities. Yes, David, the Wells Fargo up by Nicollet and 31st that was burnt in the uprising. So Wells Fargo will maintain a branch bank at that site. That's the one known. There will be ground floor commercial. And then part of the application that PPL submitted included a community engagement team that is holding a summer series of 6 events on Thursday evenings. And we're just working on the final flyer for that. That will talk about the site, and it'll talk about housing, and it'll talk about design, and it'll talk about needs for commercial and what do the people who live up there see as the needs being. But it'll also talk larger about a vision for that entire area of Lake and Nicollet. And part of that is Wells Fargo is a 2-acre site, but Kmart will follow in the footsteps. And so one of the key points that the engagement team is making is until people increase their wealth, they will never be able to leave affordable housing. And so we should be looking for ways that people who are living here can be in that area and also increase their wealth, their earning potential. What sort of job partnerships, what sort of entrepreneur spaces can we build? What sort of schooling can we have in that area? And what sort of scaled housing of affordability, so that we're not, and I don't know that there is a more modern word for this, I apologize, but so we're not building like a ghetto. We're not building just a poor neighborhood, again, that no one goes to hang out at a bar or learn something new. And so we're really creating like a vibrant, interactive, multi-tiered economic neighborhood at Lake and Nicollet, so that when people are actually have the money to move out of affordable housing, they can stay in their community. They don't have to move to all the way to Kingfield, 10 blocks south, you know. So that's really the goal of the engagement process. One of the things that we've started to do is the engagement team has asked each neighborhood. So it's Kingfield, Lindale, Whittier, Central, and West Phillips that are involved. And each of us is being encouraged to recruit up to 25 people who agree to attend all those sessions. And so I'm putting together an application for people to actually apply for that role. And the goal isn't to get like our entire board to do that work. It isn't to get the entire redevelopment committee to do that work. And this is part of the other reason that I'm meeting like with the Aliveness Project and with Nicollet Square. Are there youth who want to stay in the neighborhood and they don't know how to do it? And what do they need? Are there people who, you know, would like to live closer to the Aliveness Project, where they get health services, where they, you know, have a community that they gather with? What do they need to do those things? And so it's reaching out to those groups to say, would people attend these meetings? There are stipends available for people who attend all the meetings. our ask is going to be a little bit broader than just go to these meetings and give your input. It's going to be, and please go back to your community and talk to the other people within your circle and get their input and share that at those meetings too.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. That's a super exciting project. Any board member comments, questions on any of those, specifically the affordable housing and then the Wells Fargo update?
When's the application? When are you going to have like the application prepared for?
Hopefully this week. The first session is on June 6th. We've had a couple people express interest just through the e-news, and I'm like, oh, an application's coming. And then I've talked to some other partners, so I just need to write up the form, and then I have someone who'll translate it into Somali for me so we can share it with that network, and then I can have my son do the Spanish translation for me so we can share with those networks. All those meetings will be held in 4 different languages. I don't know how they're going to do that, but somehow they're going to do that. And record it in all those languages so people can watch them after.
And do you know when the projected groundbreaking would be?
So PPL is doing their funding applications right now. So they're just frantically writing grant reports to get money to do the project. And I think they really want to break ground next summer. Wells Fargo really, really, really wants a bank open again. And so that's been a really interesting element about this project is they sold the land and then they're like, well, we just want to build really quickly. So can we just like have a corner back and can we build our little like drive-through bank again? And PPL's like, you know, like, we want you to be part of this building. We want you to be part of the community. So it's been a super interesting research project to look at the way that banking is changing in a lot of different countries and communities, and how if Wells Fargo is going to get really wise about it, how if they integrate the bank into the community structure of this building, it might actually end up also being beneficial for them. But there's this model out there of banks being coffee shops and banks with no walls, banks being libraries, banks being like part of the community instead of like the separate protected thing that you go into.
Yeah, it's just, I just probably shouldn't say this. It's too bad it's Wells Fargo. It'd be great if it was like a Black-owned bank or someone that engaged in microfinance and engaged with like, you know, community underfunded community entrepreneurs. But maybe Wells Fargo will carry that. I don't know.
I don't know, but 2 of the people who have applied from the neighborhood work for Wells Fargo. So I mean, I think we have Wells Fargo and we're going to have to push them to be more of a community model, or maybe across the street, one of the things we attract is a different type of bank. You know, there's a lot of hands changing, a lot of money changing hands. I know, at least in the East African community, that never goes through a bank. And so there's a lot of incentive to for a bank to change the way that they are relating to their community. Lisa, you used to work for Wells Fargo.
I want to be cognizant of time since we're at 8:50 right now. Any further comments or questions in regards to Sarah's update? Sarah, I know we had farmers market as the last item. We've touched on this already a few times. Is there anything in 1 minute that you just wanted to quickly pitch for that?
Yep. Does anyone want to work opening farmers market? And to me, without a survey ready, the task would be to greet neighbors. It would be to promote the annual meeting and the recruitment for board members, like how to apply. And it would be to sell our new swaggy t-shirts that just came from the printer today. I don't know if you can see them. They're kind of cool. They're like a see-through green on green. Otherwise, if no one wants to work opening market, I think by the next week, we will for sure have the survey done. And there's a couple weeks in there where like all that work could be done. The way we've done the market in the past is in 2 shifts. You know, set up a table, throw up a tent, do that work. I'm more than happy to get supplies to anyone that wants to work it. Basically, they bring the stuff to the market, they give it to the second person brings it home.
Sarah, what are the hours of the market? Is it 8:30 to 1?
So it's really
So it'd
like
be-
an 8:15 to 10:45 shift and a 10:30 to 1:15
When's the first weekend?
this weekend.
Oh,
Sarah, do you want me to put together like a Google form or a Google Doc of some sort
That would
and then
be great.
just put it out to the neighborhood or to the board members and say, hey, sign up for shifts. And then if we don't, I'm happy to do some shifts I can't do this weekend,
Yep.
but yeah, after that. So I'll put that together as well.
That would be great. Thank you, BJ.
And I saw there was some discussion in the chat too, so thank you.
We'll fill out BJ's form.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, anything else, Sarah, you wanted to add? I don't want to cut you off, sorry.
No, but yes. Thank you all for your vote of confidence and for the raise that you provided me. The executive committee and I had a great talk. I know the report just went in the packet. It came in late. So thank you, Sarah T, for taking the time to write that up. And I love my job. Thanks for letting me work for you guys.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, with all of that, we'll move on to board member, community member updates and share. Josh, you've been a part of this before, so I think you understand the jam. Becky, I haven't updated the order, so you're up first again. I apologize.
hey, we had probably, I think, our lowest turnout ever at the Bridge last Tuesday. And it was a lovely day, finally. We've had some really crappy weather. I have a couple questions. Does anyone know what's going into where La Chaya used to be or where the dollar store was? And has anything happened with the old Grand Cafe? No one?
What's La Chaya?
Yeah,
It was what, Nicollet and 46 almost. It was Corner Table. It was Kentucky Fried Chicken a really long time ago.
So the corner table is now going to be Revival Smoked Meats.
Yeah.
So the same Revival, but it's where they used to be at Keg and Case.
Mhm.
They're moving their smoked meats restaurant to the corner table, which is owned by the Revival people.
Yep.
Wait, was it most recently La Chaya?
It was
or
most
Corner
recently
Table?
corner table.
Oh, God. All right.
And then I heard a rumor at the dollar store that has not been confirmed. And I've looked because it would be kind of exciting that Trader Joe's is going to go in there, but I think that's bull. So.
No, I think they pulled out, but the parking lot would have been perfect for a Trader Joe's.
Oh, what a, so that was actually like hypothetically a thing that was going to happen, and then they pulled out.
It was a discussion online, at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think Trader Joe's ever was going there. I think
Yeah.
someone said they were, but I think that would have been news to Trader Joe's.
I know. Yeah. Okay. Good. I was like, that would be so great. I'll never leave my house. This is great. But so, oh well. I have no idea. We could break in and see.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Thanks, Becky, and thank you for the discussion about what is going to be what and what is what already. I am next. I just wanted to, I kind of said this at the top, but we had an awesome weekend on Grand. We had friends over that we hadn't seen in a long time because we had the space to be able to have them. My 3-year-old rode a 2-wheel bike by herself for the first time ever because she had the space to be able to do it, which was awesome. And so it was real, like dogs, kids, everybody slept very well because there was a lot of outside time. So it was, and it's, from what I saw, it seemed like a lot of neighbors got out and enjoyed it while the asphalt was still there. So it was exciting to see. It was exciting to meet neighbors, and it was really, really awesome. So now we're into more construction and less fun stuff, but those couple days were pretty great. So Lisa.
I feel like I do so much, and then you ask me these questions and I have no idea what I've actually done for the last, in my case, 2 months, because I missed last month for being in North Dakota. So I think the most exciting thing I did was go down and try a Raleigh down there on Nicollet by the Best Steakhouse across the street from the post office. So if you haven't checked that out for Mexican food, it was absolutely amazing. So I would highly recommend that. Yeah, other than that, I'm really excited about vaccines coming for my teenager. Not so excited about the fact that she gets her going to take classes for her permit. And then my 9-year-old is equally lovely and wonderful right now and just full of energy. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. Alice?
We are mostly enjoying the Grand Avenue. And it's actually kind of fun watching how they're going to do this. We get a front row seat on road construction, I guess. Seeing the big machines was a toddler's delight, as many people pointed out on Facebook. And I will reach out to more people in our neighborhood to see if anyone's interested in joining the board.
Awesome. Thank you, Alice. David R.
Yeah, I've been going downtown, as some of you know, for majority of the pandemic. And this week or last week, I forget, it's actually been kind of busy downtown. Not back to normal, but there are more restaurants opening back up, like Afro Deli opened back up in the Skyway, which was really exciting because they're delicious and they do great work. And there are lines, so I actually have to now wait in line to get my Skyway food. And I kind of got used to not having anyone else downtown besides me and like 2 other people. But yeah, no, it's that's good. It feels like I biked home down Nicollet, and it just, things feel like they're getting somewhat like calmer and people are in a better mood. And I don't know. There's a lot of crap that we've had like that's been negative, but there's a lot of positive energy that I've been seeing recently. So that's good.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Afro Deli French fries are my favorite food in the world. David S.
Other than getting out on my bike, and I've not started working downtown yet, but that's a bummer about lines, because I may be going next week. But just again, training my cat to go outside so that we can go enjoy the park, because our dog does just fine. But no, it's just been great with this weather.
Awesome. Thanks, David. BJ?
Some of you know I run the KFNA Instagram, and I've started doing a shop local, eat local situation in the neighborhood. And every time I go to a different location, I think I'm 4 or 5 weeks ahead of, I have the photos already before I post. And every place I go, they're like, oh yeah, we saw you feature digs. We're so excited that we're coming up in the list. It's a great idea. So Kanoko actually let me go in and take photos before they opened to the public this week. And Victor's was super excited. They're like, oh yeah, this is great. We can't wait till we're featured. Like, it's exciting. So it's exciting getting to talk to the different businesses around Kingfield.
Amazing. Thanks, BJ. That's awesome. Sarah T.
I love that. Just speaking of businesses, I visited 3 Grand Avenue businesses that I haven't been to in a very long time over the weekend. Tap Society, Patisserie 46, and Good Times. And my family was out there biking a bunch and walking and seeing neighbors and meeting friends. And so it was cool to be out there this weekend. Another update is we hosted 2 neighborhood MPD 150 sessions over the past month. We had around 50 people that registered and probably 40 people at the first and, oh gosh, around 20 at the second, I think it is. And then we have 10 people in the neighborhood who want to continue meeting on a regular basis and talking about safety beyond policing and continuing to learn together and thinking about what types of actions we can take as a neighborhood. So that's super exciting to me.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Josh, would you mind going if you've got anything you'd like to share?
I don't have much. Life's still pretty boring for me. I'm fully vaccinated now, but my roommate is not quite yet. So I'm waiting till he is too before I re-enter society. Sarah mentioning TAP Society made me think of that because I used to like to go there in the before times, and I'll be probably going back there again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Sarah, LR, update from you?
Yeah, I do want to mention that Instagram is up by 25% in the last 3 months, which is about the same time that BJ has taken over, I think, the account. So thank you for that. That's super exciting to see. What I've been watching is the orchard blooming. So for those of you who don't know, we have 25 fruit trees that we care for in Martin Luther King Park. And there's a really beautiful apple tree blooming right now, but the cherries were last week and the pear trees were blooming, and we even have one of the plum trees blooming. So that's super cool.
Amazing. That's awesome. My cherry tree is also blooming. Very cool. Okay, since we are over time, we will cut it there, but thank you everybody for joining on this beautiful night. And
Chris, we just had someone join us.
Oh, we did.
Matthew, are you here? I just let him in.
Oh.
Hey.
I'm really sorry. Some things came up. I'm sorry for dropping in and out.
That's okay. Do you just want to introduce yourself really quickly? We're just closing the meeting, but I know that you and I have talked, and I know you wanted to be here tonight.
Yeah, I would just like to stop in just to get to know people a little bit, see faces, and I own an apartment building in the neighborhood, and I've got some current concerns about that I've shared with Sarah, but I'm not interested in talking about them tonight. I just wanted to say hey.
Cool. Well, thanks for making the effort. If you want to watch the meeting, we'll have it posted on our YouTube station.
Oh, okay.
So you can follow the whole thing, and we can follow up about the issues in your alley too.
Yeah, and the next door, remember?
So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining, and glad we got to meet you. So
Meet some of you. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you everybody, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks.